traditional at-fault divorce. We're dealing with irreconcilable differences. And I think the real answer should have been that when problems arose, a judge told them both, STFU, you are in a marriage. It is a sacred covenant. You will not do X, Y, and Z. The problem I have with this is marriage has become dating. It's dating with like strings attached in the financial world after the fact. No. Don't get married if you don't want to get married. Okay. If you don't want to get into a position where you have to file for a divorce and hire lawyers for these reasons, then don't get married.
Right.
Look, I agree with the idea that you should not treat marriage lightly. You know, at least culturally, I was raised that way. I understand the sentiment. I get it. But the idea that there's these two people that are unhappy, Hillary and Stephen, who entering the relationship maybe thought the situation was completely different. Maybe Hillary thought Stephen was a different guy. Maybe Stephen thought Hillary was a different gal. And it just didn't mesh, and obviously didn't mesh. We have video proof of it not meshing, and the fact that they don't have a fantastic relationship, right? So if that's the case, is the solution that these two people just stay in an unhappy marriage? And if they do stay in an unhappy marriage together, are we doing this just for the health of the child? Because if that's the case, why wouldn't they be able to raise them together but separated in a way? Because if they're together, and I understand the idea, you have one household, more stability, easier for the kid. If you have two people yelling at each other in a household in the way that I was watching them go at it, or really mostly Crowder go at it on that footage we got that was released, that is not an environment you want to raise a kid in. It is not a good environment or a good example to set for a child that this is how you treat your wife. You berate her like this while she's pregnant and have her go do all these chores. And I'm not trying to, I don't want to judge their situation too much. I really don't want to, but I mean, this is just so off base.
At all. And so
and then not to mention sacred covenant. Is Tim Pool like a really hardcore Christian? We're going to tell them, I'm sorry, it's sacred. God says you have to stay together no matter how much you don't like each other. Why? Why not just give people the freedom to choose? That seems to generally be Tim Pool's vibe about everything. He's like a pro-freedom guy. At least that's part of his shtick. He likes freedom. He likes the government not sticking their nose where it doesn't belong. I can understand the position of the government has no place in marriage. That I can understand more, but I can't understand the position of I'm pro-freedom and the government has a place in marriage, and that place in marriage is restricting people to stop them from leaving it if they're unhappy and keeping them stuck in an unhappy marriage. Here's another question. Let's say they raise the kid to 18 and then want to get divorced. They're like, we were just doing this until 18. Now we want to get divorced. We no longer want to be together. If it's still a sacred covenant before God, then we have a situation where Stephen and Hillary could be in their 60s, hating each other, completely unhappy. They might not even be living together anymore, and they're just married because that's just how it is. That's because it's sacred. Like, things that are sacred to the people who believe in them and hold them to be sacred. So for people who view marriage as a religious item or as a religious contract, and it's a contract before God, then yes, it would be sacred. And it might, I mean, like at least religiously sacred. It still has maybe a different type of sacredness, like a different type of, like, I don't know how to describe it, but it has a certain weight to it, of course, marriage versus dating. But as an individual who is in an unhappy marriage, if the purpose of the marriage was for two people to share love and be happy to each other, if it no longer serves the purpose, what is the purpose of a marriage? What would be the purpose of keeping two, say, 66-year-old elderly people who have already raised their kids together? What would be the motivation here to keep these people together if the purpose of the marriage was to facilitate love which no longer exists? Which no longer exists. I mean, like, I can't sail a boat in a dry lake, right? The boat's pointless now. For me to continue to maintain it and live in it, it would be stupid if it no longer serves the purpose.
The issue is not so much like in this argument I'm making, it's not to do with Hillary or Stephen specifically. It's about the fact that we live in this world where people get married and then go, you know what? It was a mistake. Let's sever ties. You pay me. No, okay, hold on. This whole thing is broken. The whole thing is broken. The other point, you know, so like Lauren Southern responded to me saying,
again, we can look at divorce rates. We can have a conversation about why divorce rates are so high or why that's upsetting. But at the end of the day, is the solution just to you know what this reminds me of? What's the solution to the currency, the ruble collapsing? Oh, just make it so people can't trade the ruble. That didn't fix the problem. You just covered the problem up. It's still going to be worse and worse down the line. Oh, you two hate each other and want to get divorced and you're at each other's necks? Well, just don't get divorced. You're not allowed. See, problem solved. Divorce rates have gone down. Well, okay, but I think maybe domestic abuse rates or other issues within relationships, violence, etc., verbal abuse, I think there's a good chance it would go up if you're stuck with people that you don't like. At a certain point, if like the contract's still there, but two people aren't even living together anymore, at a certain point, what's the purpose of the contract? What would be the purpose of the contract at that point? Is it just for tradition? Is it just because we don't like the fact that marriage rates, there's like such high divorce rates? What would be the purpose that's being served at that point?
Or she responded in general to many people. So what? Hillary gives up her job for Stephen, but now that they're getting a divorce, she has no money. And I'm like, even if she kept her job, she would never have anywhere near as much money as Steven Crowder has. Like, so I don't appreciate this argument that Crowder, as a wealthy man, pays her $25K a month. If Steven Crowder was worth nothing and had no job, we wouldn't be having this argument. So it's not an issue of whether she's entitled to as a woman.
Look, I'm not going to put a number to it because I don't know all the financial background. I don't think Tim knows all the financial background either, to be blunt. So I can't say if $25K a month is a number. I'd like to make $25K enough. I'd love $25K a month. But the idea that she gave up her job to serve the household as a housewife, and that's what Stephen wanted. That's what Stephen wanted as a conservative man. And now a divorce is happening, separation's coming. I mean, she has to have something to sustain herself. It doesn't necessarily have to be 25 a month. Maybe it'll be 10 a month. Maybe it'll be 15 a month. Maybe it'll be 8, 7. Who knows what it'll be? But she needs something to sustain herself for at least a time period, for at least a certain set number of months or years until she can, you know, get her on her own 2 feet with her own employment, get her own household, manage her own finances, etc. At the very least, even if you wanted to reformat how divorces work and how financial compensation of divorces work, the solution can't just be, screw it. Because at a certain point, what you're going to have is a bunch of people stuck in unhappy marriages because at this point, they're just too committed financially to be able to pull out.